Okay, let's dive into this. Think about a single person who seems to be constantly pushing the limits of what we even think is possible.
Yeah.
A figure who, really sparks a lot of debate, a lot of fascination. Chances are you probably have an opinion on him, even if you haven't really thought it through much.
Absolutely. We are talking about someone who's become, well, a truly global phenomenon. Our deep dive today focuses on Elon Musk, and he's not just, a billionaire entrepreneur. He's arguably become a kind of symbol of modern ingenuity, known for that audacious vision, his relentless work ethic, and this almost strange ability to bring really disruptive innovations to life.
He really is a force, isn't he? Often seems like he's pushing humanity forward, sometimes maybe faster than we're ready for. So our mission today really is to dig into the sources you sent over. We want to pull out the most important bits of knowledge about Musk, help you understand this incredibly complex figure. The goal is a comprehensive overview, but concise,
Yeah.
balancing the big achievements with, well, the controversies that always seem to follow him.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how the sources frame him. It's like he's constantly walking this tightrope between sheer brilliance and, well, maybe eccentricity. It leads to that question lots of people ask. Genius or, madman? His ideas often sound completely impossible.
Right.
Right up until the moment he somehow just makes them happen.
And that's where these sources really shed some light
Yeah.
on the sheer impact. I mean, you look at his empire, this collection of companies, it's kind of staggering. He's not just creating businesses, he's fundamentally reshaping whole industries. Like, take Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
The sources show its revolution wasn't just making electric cars. It was this radical rethinking of the entire automotive supply chain, even the customer experience. They really highlight how Tesla's vertical integration, like from batteries right through to direct sales, just completely challenged decades of how things were done. It forced all those legacy automakers to scramble, really, adapt, or risk becoming obsolete.
Exactly. And then you have SpaceX. The sources detail how they pulled off what many thought was impossible for a private company sending astronauts to the ISS. But even that, as big as it was, is just a step. His truly huge goal, laid out so clearly in the sources, is colonizing Mars, making life multiplanetary.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does. And the sources really show how he applied that first principles thinking here. Instead of just, improving existing rockets, he broke the whole problem of space travel down to its absolute basics, asking things like, what are rockets actually made of? What do those raw materials cost? And that led to the radical idea that rockets could be largely reusable, a concept basically dismissed by the established players until SpaceX actually did it, landing those Falcon 9 boosters. It was revolutionary.
That's such a great example of taking an idea right back to its core.
Mm.
But it's not just rockets and cars. He's also diving into the human brain with Neuralink. Now, the long-term vision is, merging brains with AI, which sounds wild. But the sources emphasize Neuralink's immediate goals are actually focused on critical medical uses.
Right, helping people.
Yeah, they detail these tiny, flexible threads they're developing. The idea is to insert them into the brain to read neural activity with, like, unprecedented precision, which could potentially restore communication or movement for people with neurological conditions. So that early work is sort of the foundation for the bigger ambitions. And then, of course, you've got the Boring Company and X, formerly Twitter, which just sort of rounds out this incredibly varied portfolio.
It's quite a collection.
It really is. So what does all this mean for you listening? Well, it's changing how we drive, how we think about humanity's future in space, maybe even the future interface between us and technology. Musk's ventures are actively reshaping things in very real ways.
So we've talked about the sheer scale of what he's doing, but what about the person? What kind of individual drives down such a unique and, sometimes polarizing path? The sources give us a pretty fascinating glimpse into that complex personality, described often as brutally honest, frequently controversial, and definitely unpredictable. That style seems to infuse everything he touches.
And the work ethic. It's just legendary, isn't it? The sources talk about him sleeping very little, working obsessively, often, like over 100 hours a week.
Yeah, it's extreme.
It creates this real split in perception, doesn't it? Critics will often call him arrogant, maybe reckless, while his fans see him as fearless, visionary. To see both sides argued so passionately, it reflects those intense demands he puts on himself and everyone around him, too.
It's really interesting how that intense personal approach translates into a wider impact. With Tesla, he shifted the conversation around climate change and transport, not just cars, but integrated energy, too. Through Neuralink's ambitions, he's pushing boundaries concerning consciousness, human augmentation, big stuff.
Huge philosophical questions there.
Exactly. And regardless of what you personally think of him, the sources really underscore his massive role in just inspiring people, a whole generation of engineers, entrepreneurs, dreamers, inspiring them to think bigger, to challenge how things are done, to tackle problems others deem impossible.
That's a pretty profound legacy already brewing. So maybe the question for you is, what can we learn from watching his approach? Maybe about leadership or problem solving or just driving change. Perhaps it's that audacity, questioning basic assumptions, or just the sheer determination to chase those moonshot goals, whatever your personal take on him might be.
Now, it's clear that visionary thinking has inspired loads of people. But, as the sources also lay out, being such a high-profile figure means intense scrutiny. And Musk is definitely no stranger to controversy. What do the sources flag as the main areas of public debate around him?
Well, the sources are pretty clear. His communication style, especially on X,
Yeah.
is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's direct access to his thoughts, raw, unfiltered. But they also list quite a few instances where his posts have sent stock prices, soaring or crashing.
Right, the market-moving tweets.
Exactly. Which has led to run-ins with regulators like the SEC. It's kind of a unique situation, isn't it? A CEO's personal platform having that kind of immediate, powerful market effect.
And his leadership style itself is another hot topic. The sources look into accounts from people who've worked for him. They describe this incredibly demanding culture, high pressure, super fast iteration. And while that environment has clearly fueled breakthroughs at his companies,
No.
the sources also talk about the human cost. Reports of significant employee turnover, burnout. It's a key tension the sources bring up. The price of that relentless ambition, maybe, on the people involved, on the organization's health.
Plus, there's that recurring criticism, isn't there? That he sometimes overpromises on timelines for these incredibly ambitious projects. The sources often mention these periods of production hell, as he calls them, where actually achieving some groundbreaking goal takes way longer and is way harder than initially projected.
Yeah, the reality of engineering challenges.
Exactly. And it's really important we stress here, our aim is just to report on these aspects from the sources provided, give you the full picture without us taking a side or endorsing any view. It's so you, the listener, can form your own informed opinion based on the information.
Right. So if we try and pull all this together, what the sources collectively seem to paint is a picture of Musk as this risk-taking revolutionary. They tell us he's not perfect, but then they suggest greatness rarely is, maybe. He might stumble, he might be misunderstood sometimes, but he dares to imagine a world that others just can't.
Yeah, that feels right. In a world that often feels full of managers, maybe, Musk is fundamentally a maker. Someone who builds things, creates things, often working right at the bleeding edge of what's even possible technologically. Love him or hate him, one thing seems undeniable from all this. You really can't ignore him.
Which brings us to a final thought, maybe something for you to ponder. What does it actually take to disrupt an entire industry on such a huge scale? To push not just technology, but maybe human potential itself, right to its limits? And what's the real cost of that kind of audacious ambition? Not just for the person driving it, but for society. How do we, balance that drive for radical innovation with things like accountability and ethical considerations as we explore these new frontiers?